Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Adam Walsh? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case. It's fairly brief. I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Adam Walsh was born in Hollywood, Florida on November 14, 1974. His father's name is John, and his mother's name is Reve. Adam was a good student in school and was described as shy and timid. He liked to play baseball and swim. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On July 27, 1981, Adam's mother, Reve, took him to the Hollywood Mall, which is now the Hollywood Hills Plaza. The Hollywood Police Station is right across the street from the mall. They went to a Sears store because his mother was interested in looking at brass barrel lamps, which were on sale. She came across a display in the toy department which featured a video game console set up so that customers could play. Specifically, it was an Atari 2600, which at the time was technologically advanced. There were a few older boys there who were taking turns playing the games. Adam's mother left Adam there with the older boys as she walked to the lamp department, which was about 75 feet out of the line of sight. She told Adam that she was going to the lamp department for a minute. He was to stay there at the video game display. Adam told his mother that he knew where the lamp department was. Adam was content to stay at the display. This was at about 12:05 p.m., at least according to Adam's mother. This timeline would later be questioned by Sears. I'll talk about that more in a few moments. In the lamp department, Reve inquired about the brass barrel lamps, but they didn't have any in stock, and she didn't have time to order one that day. She simply left her name and then returned to the video game display. She arrived at 12:15 p.m. and discovered that no one was there, neither Adam nor the older boys. She found out from a store manager that some type of physical altercation had taken place among the older boys, which led to a 17-year-old security guard ejecting them from the store. Perhaps Adam followed those boys out of the store, or the security guard kicked him out as well. There are different accounts about what happened here. Adam and his mother had entered through the north entrance, but Adam exited out of the west entrance. Adam's mother searched for him all over the store. She had employees use the public address system to page him. She happened to run into her mother-in-law. They searched for Adam together. Adam's mother did not call the police until 1:55 p.m. The police failed to find any sign of Adam. On August 10, 1981, which was 2 weeks after Adam went missing, his severed head was found near the Florida Turnpike in Vero Beach. This is about 130 miles from where he disappeared. The head was in a drainage canal. The rest of Adam's body was never recovered. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. The police continued their investigation. Now it was a homicide case. After many years, the police decided that Adam was murdered by a serial killer named Otis Toole. He confessed to the murder, recanted the confession, confessed again, recanted again. This went on for a while. During the times when Otis was in a confessing mood, here's what he said happened. On July 27, 1981, he was driving a 1971 Cadillac near the Sears store when he encountered Adam. Otis Toole used toys and candy to trick Adam into entering the vehicle. He drove toward Jacksonville, Florida. Adam didn't give him much trouble, but then he started to panic. Otis knocked him out. Otis drove to a deserted service road and strangled Adam with a seatbelt. He decapitated him with a machete, incinerated his body, then disposed of the remains. The police originally had possession of the Cadillac, a blood-stained carpet from the vehicle, and the machete. They were unable to identify who the blood belonged to. Eventually, the police lost the car, the carpet, and the machete. No one knows if Otis Toole was actually guilty, but there are a few reasons to believe that he committed the crime. A few people saw him in the Hollywood area not long before Adam disappeared, and most of the elements of his confession seem plausible considering how Adam died and the fact that Otis was a serial killer. The problem with Otis Toole was that he and another serial killer named Henry Lee Lucas were notorious for falsely confessing to hundreds of homicides. In 1986, Otis Toole died of cirrhosis of the liver and AIDS while he was in prison. He was serving a life sentence for other offenses. There was another theory about what could have happened to Adam. Some people believed that the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer murdered him. When Adam was killed, Jeffrey Dahmer lived in Miami Beach, not far from Hollywood. 2 witnesses placed him at the mall on the day Adam was killed. Someone noticed a man fitting his description entering the toy department at Sears. One witness said that he saw a man with blonde hair forcing a child into a blue van before speeding off. Jeffrey Dahmer had blonde hair, and he had access to a blue van through a business where he worked. In 1992, the year after Jeffrey was arrested in Wisconsin for killing several men and boys, he was interviewed about Adam Walsh. Jeffrey said that he had nothing to do with it. He gave a lot of details about other murders, like he confessed to his crimes. He argued that if he was guilty of killing Adam, he would have confessed to that crime as well. In 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer and another inmate who was with him were beaten to death in a prison gym shower by a prisoner named Christopher Scarver, who was already serving life in prison. Christopher was given 2 additional life sentences. I'm sure he was really broken up about that outcome. Like he was going to say, I wasn't too upset about my original life sentence, but these 2 additional life sentences, well, that's just taking things too far. On December 16, 2008, the Hollywood police declared that the Adam Walsh case was closed. They were convinced that Otis Toole was the killer. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. There are not many child abduction and murder cases that have had the cultural impact of the Adam Walsh case. There are a few reasons this case is notorious. The gruesome nature of the crime, the random nature of the crime, the mystery behind the case, the 2 primary theories of the crime involve well-known serial killers, the theory that the murder was perpetrated by a stranger, and the level of media exposure. In October 1983, a made-for-television movie titled Adam was broadcast. It attracted 38 million viewers. It was broadcast again in 1984 and 1985. Prior to the release of this movie, there was not a lot of concern about strangers kidnapping children in broad daylight, or at any time for that matter. The Adam Walsh case and the exposure it received led to a number of changes. Congress passed the Missing Children Act in 1982 and the Missing Children's Assistance Act in 1984, which led to the formation of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. In 2006, Congress passed the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act. This increased penalties for people committing offenses against children. The Adam Walsh case and the movie also led to panic about abductions perpetrated by strangers. The vast majority of perpetrators who abduct children are related to the children. Of course, some abductions are perpetrated by strangers, as exemplified by the Adam Walsh case. The popularity of the movie Adam led to people overestimating the risk associated with strangers. People started using the term stranger danger. Strangers went from being totally disregarded to being a major source of fear. Item number 2. With the advent of cancel culture comes this irrational idea that everybody throughout history should be judged by the standards of today. This has led some people to be judgmental regarding the behavior of Adam's mother, Reve, and the security guard. Should Reve have left Adam in the toy department, and should the security guard have kicked him out of the store, if that is in fact what happened? The answer to this question is a little bit more complex than it would initially seem. As I mentioned, The timeline Reve supplied was disputed by Sears. Adam's mother said that she was only away from Adam for 10 minutes at the most. Sears said that it was at least 90 minutes. As far as the bad behavior of the security guard, Sears produced evidence suggesting that Adam left the store by himself. If Adam's mother was telling the truth about what happened, here's how I would analyze the idea that she should be judged harshly. It's important to consider what the world was like in 1981. It was a much different time as far as how people worried about kidnappings, or did not worry about them. Again, it was the Adam Walsh case that brought attention to strangers who kidnapped children. Adam's mother had no way of knowing that leaving Adam with a group of older boys playing a video game was going to lead to disaster. She also had no way of knowing that a security guard would kick a 6-year-old boy out of a store, having no idea where that boy's parents were. The behavior of everyone involved was pretty normal for the time. The behavior that deviated from the expected was that of Otis Toole, if he was in fact guilty. One of the things that stands out to me when reading Reve Walsh's account of what happened is how there was no framework for understanding this type of abduction. Not for her and not for anyone else. When she was scrambling around looking for Adam, people were ignoring her. She said it was like she was invisible. She really had no idea what to do because this was so out of the ordinary. She was treated by the people in the store as if she was not bringing up a legitimate problem. Their attitude was something like, a child who was lost in a store will certainly be found. There was nothing to worry about. People say that Reve should have called the police earlier than she did. Of course, that's correct, but the expected outcome was finding Adam on her own. This speaks to the power of a danger which cannot be predicted. It's like if somebody was playing chess and waiting for their opponent to move. They might be thinking that the opponent is going to move a pawn or a knight, but instead, the opponent attacks them with a crowbar. No one would predict that that would happen based on the culture and traditions of the game of chess. That's how foreign it was in 1981 to think of a stranger perpetrating a kidnapping. Again, the analysis of this item was based on Adam's mother telling the truth. If she wasn't telling the truth, my analysis would change somewhat. Leaving a 6-year-old alone for anywhere near 90 minutes was unacceptable, even in 1981, although still probably not that unusual. Item number 3. Adam Walsh's father, John Walsh Jr., became a well-known victim rights advocate and hosted the television show America's Most Wanted, which aired on the Fox network. This was the longest-running crime reality show in the history of the network and led to the arrest of over 1,000 fugitives. John would go on to be featured in a few other shows, but he was never able to recapture the success of America's Most Wanted. Not everybody is a fan of John Walsh. He has had his share of controversy. Some people believe that he is a hypocrite and not the right person to be advocating for tough-on-crime policies. Here are a few examples of John's controversies. John Walsh does not appear to be very good at math. One time when he was speaking to Congress, he claimed that 50,000 children were abducted by strangers each year. The number is actually less than 350. It may be as low as 100. John has been accused of causing panic. In 2006, John suggested planting exploding tracking chips inside of criminal offenders, specifically in their rear quarters, so to speak. The idea was that if the offender crossed a certain boundary, the chip would explode. John said this would send a big message. John would later say that this was a joke, which nobody thought was funny. John Walsh and his wife were accused of using cocaine and marijuana by Adam's godfather. It's believed that they dropped their lawsuit against Sears to conceal this information, but it came out anyway. In his book, Tears of Rage, John Walsh admits that he was in a relationship with Reve when she was 16 years old. At this time, John was in his 20s, and they lived in the state of New York. The age of consent in New York is 17. The irony here is that if John had been convicted of this, he would have been punished under the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act. This is particularly notable considering John's attitude toward criminal offenders. For example, John featured a number of fugitives on America's Most Wanted. Some of them who were arrested had stayed out of trouble for years, like they escaped justice and just moved on with their lives. They were productive citizens. John made it clear that no matter how many years had passed since a crime was committed, the offender should always pay the full price for what they did. He has also implied that criminals are incapable of changing. Once a person commits a crime, they are a criminal forever. This leaves John in a tough place as far as his behavior with Reve. I'm sure he's just waiting for the right time to turn himself in. Now moving to my final thoughts. Crimes like those featured in the Adam Walsh case are both horrible and relatively uncommon. This is a tough combination of characteristics for people to process. The impact of these crimes on people's attitudes exceed the actual risk. The murder of Adam Walsh has led to an awareness of strangers who commit kidnappings, but it also led to negative outcomes like widespread fear and panic and overbearing legislation, which is functionally unenforceable and financially impractical. No matter how terrible a crime is, it is important that society react in a rational manner. For many years, John Walsh has led a crusade against reasonable and measured response to crime. In his mind, all criminals are bad, and that's the end of the story. It appears as though John became a prisoner to his own fear and anger. He has forgotten about the ability of people to better themselves. Presumably, he has changed from his own questionable behavior, but in his mind, he is the only one capable of such a fate. Those are my thoughts on the case of Adam Walsh. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be as intriguing as a crowbar-wielding chess player. Thanks for watching.